അടുത്തതായി വിഷയം അവതരിപ്പിക്കുന്നതിനായിട്ട് അഡ്വക്കേറ്റ് പ്രശാന്ത് പത്മനാഭൻ സാറിനെ ക്ഷണിച്ചുകൊള്ളു.
Good afternoon, esteemed members. I believe I am audible.
Yes, sir. Of course, you are audible.
The topic which I have selected for today's discussion is judicial interference and non-interference in the electoral system. Sorry, I didn't know that some of the suggestions will go to Election Commission of India. These cannot go there because Election Commission will not have any power to upset a Supreme Court order or to give a suggestion. It can suggest, but it is ultimately for the Parliament to do this. Let me come to the point. This is slightly technical, but since I'm a lawyer practicing in Supreme Court, I thought I will touch upon this topic. It's with regard to the interference in courts in certain matters, whether it is justifiable or not. Now there are discussions whether PIL jurisdiction has to be exercised, whether it has to be exercised by the High Court or by the Supreme Court, whether suo moto interference is good or bad. I am of the view that we cannot look at everything through the binaries of whether it is desirable or not. Depends on each of the situations and how the court is interfering. So let me come to the point. We are all aware that Representation of People Act 1951 is the law dealing with elections to the House of People and to the House or Houses of Legislature of each state. It's qualification and disqualification and corrupt practices. Corrupt practices are mentioned in Part 7 of the Act and Section 123. Section 123, Clause 3 is very important. It reads, it's a corrupt practice, appeal by a candidate or his agent or by any other person with the consent of a candidate or his election agent to vote or refrain from voting for any person on the ground of his religion, race, caste, community or language, or the use of or appeal to religious symbols or the use of or appeal to national symbols such as the national flag or the national emblem for the furtherance of prospects of the election of the candidate or for prejudicially affecting the election of any candidate. So simply stated, this means if a candidate is misusing his religion, race, or community or language for the purpose of his advantage or to the disadvantage of his opponent, then it is a corrupt practice. The 7-judge bench of Supreme Court had an occasion to consider the ambit of that provision that is reported in one judgment, Abhiram Singh versus C.D. Komachan. The issue was, what is the meaning of the word his religion, race, caste, community or language, which is occurring in Section 123. The majority judgment was by Justice Madan Lokur, to which Justice Nageshwar Rao agreed. And at that time, Chief Justice was T.S. Thakur, he agreed. And Justice Bobde gave a separate but concurring judgment. In that, the majority held, Justice Madan Lokur's judgment reads, for maintaining the purity of the electoral process and not violating subsection 3 of Section 123 of RP Act, must be given a broad and purposive interpretation, thereby bringing within the sweep of a corrupt practice any appeal made to an elector by a candidate. That is understandable, but that goes against the views of so many judgments of Supreme Court in which the earlier benches have held that the electoral corrupt practices is to be strictly construed because it is akin to a criminal nature. So it is a quasi-criminal offense and it has to be strictly construed. Now, the majority has relied on the amendment. This provision was amended in 1961 and subsection clause 3A was also inserted. Clause 3A of Section 123 makes the promotion or attempt to promote feeling of enmity or hatred between different classes of citizens of India on grounds of religion, race, caste, community, or language to be an offense. That is a separate issue, but the majority read the intention of Parliament is to give wide meaning to this electoral offense, and there should not be any appeal by any candidate or his election agent with his consent to vote on account of the religion, race, caste of not only the candidate but also of the elector. I hope I made myself clear. So they are saying that if a candidate is going to a particular constituency and saying that you belong to this religion or this caste or you speak this language, then also it should be construed as an electoral offense. That was the view of majority. But then Dr. Justice Dhananjay Chandrachud gave a dissenting judgment. According to me, that is the correct view. But he was in minority, only 2 other judges concurred with him. Justice Chandrachud relied on the parliamentary proceedings and the speech of Law Minister while introducing this amendment. Sri A.K. Sin was the Law Minister then, and the Law Minister spoke on the occasion. There was some apprehension by some member that if you go to a particular constituency and say that because of your language you are discriminated, we want to protect you, or I will, as your candidate, I will speak for you in the House, then it should not be an offense. The Law Minister in the speech said this. He said, you cannot make it an election issue if you say, do not vote for him, he is a Bengali, or do not vote for him, he is a Khasi. I made it unequivocally clear that it is the purpose and design of this House and the country to ensure that no man shall appeal only because he speaks a particular language and should get vote for that reason. Or no man shall appeal against a particular person to the electorate solely because that opponent of his speaks a particular language. But if you say that Bengali language in this area is being suppressed, or the schools are being closed because they bore a particular name, then you are speaking not only to fight in an election, but you are also really seeking to protect your fundamental rights, to preserve your own language and culture. That's a different matter. So this was the speech. And then he said, Law Minister said, but if you say I am a Bengali, you are all Bengalis, vote for me. Or I am an Assamese, so vote for me because you are Assamese speaking men. I think the entire House will deplore that hopeless form of election propaganda. And no progressive party will run an election on that line. Similarly, on the ground of religion. So Justice Dhananjay Chandrachud gave importance to the plain and natural meaning and the intention of the legislature, here it is Parliament. And he held that a long-standing practice of this court is to construe this provision as a quasi-criminal provision and give strict meaning and not to give a purposive interpretation. And therefore, Justice Chandrachud held the expression his occurring in section 123(3) must mean the religion, race, community, or language of the candidate in whose favor an appeal to cast a vote is made, or that of another candidate against whom there is an appeal to refrain from voting. So he said that this will not apply to a voter. Voter's caste or community or language can be mentioned because that is the intention of the Parliament. I think that view is correct because what is a constituency? The elected members are going to the House to represent their particular grievance. So if the elected member is not able to address the grievance of a particular section of people, suppose there are some Malayalis residing in Karnataka and they are facing some problem, and if a candidate is saying that I will address your concern in the House, then it should not be an electoral offense. So this plain reading by the minority, Justice Dhananjay Chandrachud's judgment is correct in my humble view, and the majority in its purposive interpretation have gone beyond what the Parliament has intended. If the Parliament wanted to make that the law, then they could have easily made the correction. They could have said that of the candidate or of the elector, Parliament could have made that provision very clear. So here, this I believe is a judicial interference in a matter which was not necessary. Unfortunately, that is by a 7-judge bench. So unless a larger bench of Supreme Court overrules, or if the Parliament make an amendment in the law, Election Commission cannot do anything. Now, I will come to one another point and then I will finish it. This is a matter which I believe the Supreme Court ought to have interfered. Supreme Court has not declined to interfere. The matter is pending, and this is widely criticized because of non-interference. This is regarding electoral bond issue. 2017, in the budget speech, the then Finance Minister Arun Jaitley introduced an electoral bond system by which the intention was, at that time it was stated that it is to shift from shift to a more transparent system and a cashless economy, and by which you can issue electoral bond in the multipliers of rupees 1,000, 10,000, 10 lakh or 1 crore. It is available in specific branches of SBI, and it can be brought by a donor with a KYC compliant account, and it can be donated to the party. The problem with this electoral bond is that it need not be disclosed who is the purchaser and to which political party it is given. It is all non-transparent. Only the SBI knows who was purchased in whose name. And it is like a currency which can be encashed. This was challenged by Association of Democratic Rights in 2018 itself, and it is pending since then. The Supreme Court could not pass a final order. It came up before a bench of Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi, and he held that it's a very serious issue, and it necessarily requires the consideration by the Supreme Court, but we don't have time right now, and therefore the final hearing will can await. In this, we have to remember one more thing. In 2013 itself, the Central Information Commissioner has held, it's in a different case, it has held that all the political parties are public authorities. 6 national parties were held to be public authorities under the Right to Information Act. They were Congress, BJP, BSP, NCP, CPI, and CPIM. But they are not disclosing. If they are public authority, they have to disclose all these details. They have not complied with the order of the Election Commission. Cases are pending before the Supreme Court. Now, the matter came up. The Association for Democratic Rights, ADR, filed interim applications in 2019 before the general elections. And in 2019 also, there was an order in April 12, 2019. That is what I have mentioned. Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi mentioned that it is a weighty issue which will take time, and we have to hear all the parties. Therefore, we don't have time. And some interim order was passed. All the political parties were directed to file an affidavit with the Election Commission of India in a sealed cover. And then elections happened. The Supreme Court has not interfered. Again, in 2020, another IA was filed. And then the matter came up before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court held that if the matter was argued for stay and if it was not granted, we will also not grant it. And that the stay was declined. In 2021, again, we know that we are in the midst of an election and the Bengal elections are not yet over. Again, this matter was, an IA was filed. And again, the matter was mentioned before the court, and Chief Justice Bobde, in his order dated 26/3/2021, again held that we cannot entertain applications again and again, and he dismissed the IA. So now, my submission is that it is correct that now we are in the midst of a pandemic and we lost one eminent judge. Tributes were paid by my learned friend Haris Biran in the beginning. I don't want to elaborate it further, but the time is less, and it is always better to have this hearing in the physical court. That is correct. But my submission is that this was an area in which Supreme Court ought to have interfered. This is a matter in which they have jurisdiction. And this is a matter where the Supreme Court ought to interfere at the earliest. The other matter in which the Supreme Court has gone in for a purposive interpretation was a matter wherein the Supreme Court ought not have expanded the plain meaning of the language. Now, I will close my presentation with one quote from Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer, not sitting in the Supreme Court after his retirement, when there was an order from the Supreme Court issuing a mandamus for interlinking of rivers. Some secretary who was retired from the government of India, he was an expert in water law, Ramaswamy Iyer, he wrote an article in Hindu that this is a matter where the Supreme Court ought not to have interfered. It requires a lot of technical expertise and all that. Justice Krishna Iyer wrote a piece and he mentioned how high an aircraft should fly without the possibility of danger, or how a safe dam should be constructed to store water, are matters highly technical, and hence these do not belong to jurisprudence or judges. If ignorance is made final, governance becomes chaos. That is why the Montesquieuian theory of the trinity of instrumentalities is accepted by many constitutions across the world, including Indian Constitution. Now, this is the acumen by which Justice Krishna Iyer distinguished where the court should interfere and where it should not interfere. But now what is happening, many of the judges are following the PIL jurisprudence of Justice Krishna Iyer and Justice Bhagavati, but sometimes they go and pass orders which cannot be implemented, and the blame is put on the judges who have invented this theory. Fali Nariman has mentioned about this in his book in beautiful words. I'll just quote this and finish my talk. This is what Fali Nariman has said. Concept of justice vary, and some judges sitting in various courts in the country without Justice Krishna Iyer's legal acumen and not endowed with his extraordinary faculty for distinguishing right from the wrong have attempted to emulate him. They have failed. Their experiments in imitation has been disastrous, and the blame is laid at the door of Krishna Iyer. Some have attempted to ape his style and use 4-syllable words where even one would do. Such imagery is inimitable, expected of a Krishna Iyer, intolerable and ludicrous when attempted by someone else. I stop my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for the beautiful educative thoughts and submissions related to judiciary involvement in electoral processes, electoral offences and all. And you are quoting beautifully our Justice Krishna Iyer also. I think definitely the people who are gathered here, they will think about it, they will learn about it further also. Thank you very much.